Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there and welcome to episode 137 of the Cognitive Podcast. We are recording here on July 4th, 2023. Happy Independence Day, Yanks. And it's about 7:40 p.m. and I'm so tired I can hardly keep my eyes open, which is probably great because that means, despite this huge amount of content this week, I probably won't go on for the 2 hours that I feared this episode might need. It's been a pretty wild week here around Rancho Cognitive, and we are pretty happy people. And of course, since we're out in the desert, we aren't watching for the fireworks because, well, basically, it would be fire, no works, because we're dry out here. And strangely, as you get older, that's one of the joys of living here because my animals are not frantic right now. So we've had a really exciting week. And if you go to the show notes, you can see a lot of the fun. Where to start? Well, first of all, see what you need to know. I welcome your comments. You guys have been mighty quiet lately. But you can comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Do not forget to put the K in cognitive, C-O-G, the word knit, I-V-E, .blogspot.com. Or you can comment on our group on Ravelry. Also, everybody seems to be getting this right. If you pay me for CFR 2023, please do not send it to coffee. That's a place where you donate to keep the podcast rumbling right along. And this is not the time. We're doing fine and I'm employed. But what I would say is if you want to pay me, all the information is in the show notes, which leads me to remind you that I want to give warm thanks to everybody who is supporting CFR 2023, including the 31 people who have paid. I have updated the list. As of today, we have 31 people. By the time you hear this, which should be July 8th, hopefully we'll have a few more. Have we broken even? No. We're pretty close. We're getting close, so that's nice. But it's a good thing. And thank you, the 31 of you. The Cognitive Fiber Retreat, for those of you who have not been listening, it is on for Saturday, November 11th, 2023. The cost is $35 per adult attendee, or per any attendee who wants raffle tickets. We'll come back to that. And all the information on that is in the show notes, both on Ravelry and on the blog. It's near the top under a section imaginatively called Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023. And you can see our hotel information, including its address and its phone number. And also there is a link to get our special rate. Meanwhile, let's see, the special rate at the Marriott, Courtyard by Marriott, goes from Tuesday, November 7th through Wednesday, November 15th. So they'd like you all to come and park it for a week and have a lovely vacation here in the fun zone that is Santa Clarita, Valencia. And we do have a lot of attractions. And if you go through the notes on Ravelry, you will see at one point, I can't remember if it's 136 or 135, our own Peachy gives a list of nearby things. And I think in 134, I can't remember who did it, gave a list of the local grocery stores. So this is really nice. I believe the hotel does have refrigerators in your room. So if you want to bring groceries, you can. Okay? So that should be good. Let's see what else. The rate is there, $169 to $179 US dollars per night. The link for booking the group rate is there. You can also just call the hotel directly and ask for the Cognitive Fiber Retreat rate. We have the list of the attendees. So we have 50 people so far, of whom 31 have paid, and we have 2 people on the wait list, our own Lefty Rebel Knitter, and then Little Fence, alias Monica. do not give up, waitlist people. We do expect to get you in. I would like to point out the vendors at this point. We have Lisa Souza Yarns, who I know she confirmed her hotel. We have Oink Pigments, Laser Sheep Yarns, Alpenglow, and Tina's Soaps. And I do not have the links in the possible vendors list. I have the links further down under the resources section, my favorite resources. But they all have the links in the show notes. Dizzy Blonde Studio, who will not be attending, has done a colorway for us. I think we're calling it Sea Glass. However, I have to make clear, as I say this every year and people get confused, we don't play favorites among the vendors. I can't really afford to do that. So Dizzy Blonde is not the only exclusive colorway. So Oink or Laser Sheep, Alpenglow, Lisa Souza, if you would like to do an exclusive colorway for this event, we would love to have it. Please get in touch with me, though, because I'd also like to promote it. I'd like to show pictures of it, and I'd like to get people involved with it. The other thing is, since I was asked this by one vendor, yes, if you do a colorway for us, I'm going to buy a skein for my personal use, and I'm going to try to knit or crochet it into something, not socks, usually a scarf or a shawl, before the event, because I want to be able to feature our vendors' stuff. So I will be wearing as much of their stuff as I have. I have to say, Oink and Laser Sheep and Alpenglow, I think I've made your stuff into socks. At this point, Alpenglow, I bought yarn from you probably way, way back, like 2009 or 10, I think. So the only problem there, guys, is I don't know if I've got any of your yarns incorporated into shawls. I do have some Lisa Souza in various locations, including sweaters. So there you go. But if you're going to do a colorway for us, vendors, please let me know. You can reach me through Ravelry or through the blog, and I will happily post pictures of it and promote it and try to get some people to buy it before the event, and I will try to have something. If nothing else, I will crochet up a shawl really fast because I really want to be able to feature your stuff. I'm happy to be advertising for you. We're so glad you're coming. Vendors, please remember that your admission fee is one or more items to a total of $35 retail. $30 to $35, I'm not going to fight. If you give me a skein that you normally retail for like $32, I'm not going to go there. But remember, this is a retail price. And please remember that this admission fee for the vendors goes into the raffle. So before we start the whole shebang, I will be meeting with all of the attendees and the vendors, if you want to come, and showing off your wares. This is a nice way of advertising before people are turned loose to go in a frenzied rush to buy all your beautiful stuff. So that's what happens to that. So vendors, remember, we don't collect cash from you. We collect objects that I can show around at the first opening meeting and then raffle off. Raffle tickets are one per paying attendee. So I don't ask kids to pay, anybody under 18, unless they want a raffle ticket. Then they have to pay the $35. There is no discount for kids. I'm just horrible that way. In the meantime, they can come. They're just not going to get raffle tickets. If you bring a completed bear to Mother Bear Project's standards, yes, I know them. I've done something like 52 bears for them. So if you bring a completed bear that can be mailed off the moment you arrive, please don't bring one and say, I'm going to finish it here today. Please do not do that. I don't have the time for that in these things, trust me. But if you bring a completed Mother Bear, made to Mother Bear Project specifications, and the link to Mother Bear is in the show notes, so you can find all this. I believe it's motherbearproject.org. Could be motherbearproject.com. I think you can figure this one out. You can just Google it. You'll find it. So read their page, do a bear up to their specs. If you bring that, one raffle ticket per completed bear. Okay, what else? Well, I also, since we're doing the mini skein swap, and please remember that it's 25 grams of yarn, fingering weight, about 100 yards is what we're looking for. No, I'm not going to be standing there with a scale measuring them. Don't be ridiculous. And no, we're not wearing any kind of ID about the mini skein swap unless you want to make a pin. Hint, hint, Steffi Joe. Unless you want to make a pin or a button that says, I am a mini skein trader, sure. At that point, just identify yourself to other attendees and say you have mini skeins to trade. I am here to tell you I will. I most definitely will. This is a way to get rid of those rather vomitous skeins that you got from advent calendars that you wish you'd never subscribed to. Come on, we can say it here. It's a joke. I know most of the advent calendars I've seen have been spectacular, but there's always that one skein where the dyer says, oh, this will make your scarf pop. And you're thinking, no, I think it'll make my eyes bleed if I knit or crochet with it. That's the mini skein we're talking about. If you have extra large minis, feel free to split them in half as long as you're getting 25 grams, about 100 yards per mini. And again, I'm not out there measuring. I will have a bunch, so I can tell you right now, I will be doing it. I have a whole bunch of patterns. I have added, number 7 there, is the Buggy Fleur hat, which is the Shetland Wool Week project this year. It's in fingering, it's a hat, it's really beautiful. It can be anything from 2 to 6 colors. Can you hear my thinking? Yeah, and it only takes about 25 grams, I believe, because they're saying how many skeins of their yarn it takes in a fingering weight, and their skeins are 25 grams. So the Buggy Fleur, I am fancying that I'm going to start my Buggy Fleur at CFR 2023, which might make a fun class. If you've never done color work, get your skeins together and come into the class. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun. What else? I haven't started on the goodie bags yet. I know, I meant to do it this week, July 4th, but thereby hangs the tale. My life got very complex in a good way. So maybe this weekend, maybe July 8th, we'll be in there. Okay, if you would like to offer a class, please let me know. I don't know where we're going to put classes, but you know what? We always solve these problems. That's the joy of CFR. This reminds me to say the raffle tickets have been located. Loretta has them. Yay, Loretta! Loretta's coming, and I keep getting messages from her, and I'm just so happy. I've really missed her. I didn't realize how much I missed all you people. It's been a long time. It's been 7 years. How did this happen? Well, I had the job from purgatory, for one thing. Okay, meanwhile, in a more calm area of the podcast, what's on my hooks and needles? Well, I finished 2 versions of Simplicity Pattern 8605. This is a modern pattern for a skirt with a waistband and pockets. Why do we like the waistband? Well, it makes it easier to load a pocket onto the skirt pieces. You can do it with a 5-seam skirt, but you really got to pay attention to measurement and what you're doing. So I don't. But the other thing about a waistband, it holds the skirt away from your body. So I went over to Joann Fabrics, and it's true, I bought more that was on sale on July 3rd. And then July 3rd and actually July 2nd and July 3rd, I made my first one. And then I made my second one today from 2 of the calicos. I like the calicos because they were on sale. When I say on sale, I mean the skirts cost me $12 each. That's not counting the elastic or the thread. For the elastic, I went on to Amazon and I got a huge bobbin of 1/2-inch braided elastic. I love it so much that I'm thinking about getting a huge one of 1-inch braided elastic. I also have one of 1/4 inch, which I was using for making masks back in the quarantine, that's sitting here covered in dust, giving me the stink eye from the corner of my sewing table. At any rate, the reason I mention all this is the thread was on sale as well. Joann's did a half off on thread, but they did it in a rather evil way. You had to buy 6 spools, and you bought 3, got 3 free. I don't think that's a problem for most of us, is it, listeners? I don't think so. No. I'm really happy because I just got some good all-purpose polyester Coats and Clark, and I'm really happy about that. And I got it, of course, I get it in black, dark blue. I meant to get white, but I ended up getting rose pink because, well, when you see the skirts I'm wearing in these pictures, you'll see why. I work in green, blue, and pink, so buying white may not be worth the effort. I also sat down and did a seam count. You know, I love me my 5-seam skirts, which I really use more as petticoats. I use them as underskirts. In the winter, when it's cool out, I will wear one of them and then pull one of the waistband skirts over it, and it gives a great layering effect, and it is shockingly warm. Now, many of you are too young to remember wearing petticoats, but I'm not. We did wear them when I was growing up in the 60s in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I have to tell you, there's nothing like a petticoat. Frankly, the winter uniform is a turtleneck with a vest or a sweater, either of which I hand knit. And then over the leggings that I'm wearing and my Crocs and my hand-knitted socks, I'm usually wearing one of my own skirts and often one of the 5-seam skirts under it as a petticoat. This is incredibly comfy and warm. We often don't even turn the heat on in the house in the winter here. Yes, we do get winter. We get down to about 20 degrees at most. But we do have a fair part of the winter that's down at 25 to 30 degrees. We do get snow here on the side of the Sierra Pelona mountain, the lone outlier between two mountain ranges. And that's where our farm is, sitting on the side of the mountain. I think we're at about 3,400 feet elevation. So anyway, it gets cold up here, kids, and that's why I wear these. So I did a count on the waistband skirt. Turns out the waistband skirt is 9 seams. You know what I'm saying, right? You hear me? How easy that is? That's really easy. Now, if you do 2 pockets, that's going to add 2 more seams. I'm counting the seams for the pockets, which the first seam where you just attach it front to front with one piece is just a little tiny seam. But, that would actually add 2 more seams. So it would be an 11 seam skirt. But these are pretty easy. That's what I'm telling you. If you look at the skirt and you go, oh yeah, I can't do anything like that. Yeah, you can actually. I mean, come on, man. 9 seams if you only use 1 pocket. 5 seams, no pocket. No waistband with a waistband, no pocket. It would be 8 seams with 1, 9 seams. No, I'm getting that wrong. With no pockets, it would be 7 seams. With 1 pocket, it's 9 seams. With 2 pockets, it should be 11 seams. How easy can we make this, kids? This is an easy skirt. And I was thinking about that today and thinking, what is it that I keep making the same skirt over and over? Well, I'll tell you. It's called This Is Why I Knit the Way I Knit. I realized today that I've knit very simple, very basic patterns, and I believe in instead buying really beautiful yarn and letting the yarn do the heavy lifting. So if you use a classic sweater pattern, but you do it in a beautiful yarn, you get a phenomenal sweater. And the other thing is, if you keep doing the same sweater over and over, you know the pattern, you know how to adjust it to yourself, you know the ins and outs and the little tricks. Turns out I got this from my sewing days. I didn't realize it, but that's pretty much what I did as a seamstress. That I was always doing these very straightforward, simple patterns, simplicity. I mean, it doesn't get easier than that, with just a handful of seams. Why? Because it's about the fabric. A classic style, like these skirts, is just a classic style. It's just a straight below the knee. Now, I wear them very long. The patterns actually have 2 versions. There's usually a version at the knee and then a long version. I always go for the long version because, frankly, I want to sit in any old position without worrying that I'm showing anything I don't want to show. And remember, I used to be a teacher and I sat in front of a room, and if you got kind of sloppy in how you were sitting, well, you can imagine that would be embarrassing with students. So that's why I've always been into the long, sort of slightly, for me, a little bit sloppier looking skirts, because I just want to be able to sprawl all over my desk, frankly, without worrying about, showing off anything I don't want to show off. However, you should know, I keep making these long skirts. Look, kids, you can measure down. You can make one skirt in either the short or the long version. You can measure down, put the skirt on, measure down to where you'd like it to fall, hem it, and then you can go back and you can recut your piece, your pattern piece. Just cut a parallel line to the bottom of the skirt piece line. Just cut a parallel line to where you want it to be, and now it's yours. It's more uniquely yours. This is not hard to do. So these are classic patterns, and really I like to let my fabrics do the heavy lifting. The other thing is I love calico. I have always been crazy about it. The wonderful Quondam Quadrat and I were kvetching the other day about when we were younger, the patterns were so beautiful. There were a lot of delicate florals, and there were also a lot of paisleys. Now it's all this sort of abstract mishmash, splotches of color, and more coarse flowers when you see them. So I happen to like little delicate flowers. As you can see, if you look at the patterns I'm wearing there, they're both little old-fashioned delicate floral calicos. But calicos do not have to be delicate, let me tell you. There's a lot of sort of stark, postmodern looking ones, but that's what I like. Okay. Meanwhile, in progress, the stash toss, we are at 4 skeins in versus 38 skeins out of the stash since January 1st, 2023. The only skeins that count are the skeins that I started to knit on since January 1st. So those 38 skeins, I've actually used them up beginning to finish from January 1st. I'm very pleased about that. It's really interesting to keep tabs on what I'm doing here. I know the more conventional way has been to count your yardage. These skeins have varied wildly in size, so, I can't give you yardage. I could if I went back through my projects. I just don't want to. But I'm very pleased about that. Right now, I am working on the Lady Eleanor shawl. I'm in the middle of skein number 9 out of 11 as I record this. I last measured it at 53 inches. I wanted to get to 70 inches. Well, I wanted to get to 65. That's my height. However, I think once this thing is blocked, it will grow considerably from what I can tell. I've got 11 skeins. The jury is still out on whether or not I want to put the fringe on it, which I would save my last skein to do. However, I probably am going to have to make that decision soon. When I get into skein 10, I'm going to have to start cutting fringe or cutting lengths for the fringe, depending on how I do the fringe, so that I have some idea of what I'm doing there, or just not going to do it, depending on the length. Meanwhile, no love on the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery, no love on the lane splitter. Notice that I have gotten down to relatively few projects. I'm really enjoying that because I'd like to start a sweater. I've got a big hunk of Lisa Souza BFL in worsted weight, and I have a lovely pattern picked out for that. I've got some extremely old charcoal gray worsted weight. I'm not sure who that is. I think it's probably Cascade. I'm pretty sure I got it from Webb's way back in my early days at Stitches West. And I'm looking at that for one of the amazing Halloween sweaters from Megan Regan, which is Bad Wolf Knits, I believe. So I have a few sweaters I want to get going, but since we're going to be at CFR with Lisa, I would like to actually start one of hers. I already have something finished from Dizzy Blonde Studios, and I have to go through my stuff to see what I've got from our other dyers. But there we go. But it's really fun to get down into the low count because all of these are pretty close to finished. None of these are going to take a huge amount of time. If only I could stop sewing. And under my favorite resources, under dyers, you will right away see our list of dyers. The only one who is not there is further down, that I put Alpenglow under LYS and Supplies because I'm not sure if she's selling us dyed yarn or if she's selling us her gadgets, but she's great and you should definitely look at her stuff. Dizzy Blondes, no spinning. I know we're in Tour de Fleece, and I'm letting that one fly by right now because I just have too many other projects on the burners. This leads us to a strategy. Today's strategy is a little strange. It's not in the normal list, but this came up this week. Not for me, but I had to talk a patient's family member through this. And it made me wonder if you all know how to do a 911 call. Because most of you haven't. And it's a really terrifying thing to do. And the reason it's terrifying is you're only doing it in an emergency. So, unfortunately, most people haven't done it until there is an emergency. And then you're kind of panic-stricken. And you don't know what they're going to ask you. Like you say, help, help. I've got an emergency, and you don't know if they're going to say, okay, flash quiz, how many zebras are in the Bronx Zoo? I mean, you don't know what they're going to ask you. And so when you are in a panic, that's not the time to find out. However, I would not encourage making bogus 911 calls. Believe me, they're already overbooked. So I just want to tell you about making a 911 call. One of the most common questions I get as a clinician is, should I call 911? I get people calling the patient or the patient's family member, and they say, help, help, something is terribly wrong. Should I call 911? Now, if you listen to my voicemail message, it says, if this is a life-threatening emergency, please hang up immediately and dial 911 or go to an emergency room. That's pretty much my answer. Is this life-threatening? 911 calls I have made in the past. Huge box, not empty, in the middle of the freeway with cars swerving around it. I called that in. You could see everybody calling that one in. People doing the crazy on the freeway. I have called that one in. I was on a bus one day and a man began to sexually harass a young teenage girl and refused to leave her alone. The bus driver asked him to stop. He would not. I called 911 on that one. That was way long ago when I was up in Washington State, and they were very gratifying in their response, I must say. You think other times I've called 911. Oh, one time I saw a man driving crazy, and he and this other driver got into a road rage thing. They both pulled over on the side of the road as I was turning into our development. I called 911, and I sat at a distance from them and watch them, and I do believe the presence of a witness was stopping violence. If you're going to do that, you stay in your car and you get ready to leave, because if they charge your car, man, you want to get out of there. I don't really advise putting yourself in danger, though, but I knew one of the guys. He was a neighbor, so I figured, all right, I'll take the chance. But I did park quite a distance away till I could see them, and I did tell the operator that I had them on my visual, that I was watching them until the police came. It's amazing what happens when the police come in a moment like that. Everybody stands down. Police are a very successful presence, I must say. So when do you call 911? Call? Well, you're going to make one if you think there is life-threatening danger, and that can be an awful lot of things. In my line of work, it's often done if a patient is going out of control and we think they may be a danger to themselves or others. It's not always what you think. I've had patients tell me, I think I took too many of my meds, and they're psychotropic meds on the more heavy side effect end of the spectrum, shall we say. You know, it's not always a patient talking to you and you say, wow, you are out of touch with reality. I'd better save your life. You know, that's not normally what it's like, actually. It's usually a pretty calm sort of thing. So you say, okay. In other words, Gemma, you're not going to tell me when to call 911. I'm going to tell you if you think there's a life-threatening emergency. But the other thing I'm going to tell you is always err on the side of safety. This is what you learn when you've been practicing for a long time, and I've had the right to do involuntary 72-hour holds in several of my jobs. I've probably held that right for over 10 years in various jobs. I do not currently have it because they don't usually give it in private practice, which is wise, because we're for the more healthy end of the spectrum in private practice individual therapy. However, what you learn from that is if you think you should make the call, you should make the call. And when you're dealing with another person and you feel like they're out of control and you feel like they are unsafe, they're going to harm themselves or harm others, that's a great moment to do it. My philosophy has been, if someone says to me, I am going to harm myself, that's an instant 911. I will just call 911. I don't care who it is, friend, family member, I don't care, that's a 911. And when somebody says something like that, where they make a threat against themselves or against an identifiable other person, now acting as a clinician, threats against an identifiable other person have a special category in my state, so I'm not going to go there. I won't give you the whole detail there. However, what I'm going to say is, at this point, you have to talk me into not calling 911. I will always err on the side of safety because I would rather stand in front of a judge for malpractice saying, Your Honor, I was acting, I believe, to save a life. I would rather say that than say, Your Honor, how did I know that they were actually going to go through with it? So I am a big fan of don't even hesitate, make the call. Oh, I once did it on an out-of-state friend where nobody could get in touch with them. And I called 911 and I asked for a safety check. They sent me over to the local police. They connected me. I was several states away. They connected me with the local police in that friend's town, and they did indeed go over and do a safety check. At that time, I'm not sure, I don't think I had my doctorate in psych, so I didn't have the doctor thing to help me. But the point is, we're all in this to keep people alive. 911, as grouchy as they can be and as overwhelmed as they can be, they would really rather keep people alive than find a corpse in a house, okay? So, don't worry about that. So what is it like? Well, in my experience, I'm always pumped full of adrenaline as I type it into my phone. However, you hit 911 and you will get an operator and they will say, what is the nature of your emergency? So they're asking you, what's the problem? They don't want your name. They don't want details or location yet. Your job is to answer their questions the way they ask it. Now, there are situations, if you're in immediate danger, you're not going to do this really coherently. But it is important to listen to what they say and to give them what they ask for because they know who to call. They do this all day long. It's not a one-off for them the way it might be for you. So they say, what is the nature of your emergency? So you can say, my friend is missing, but they said they were going to harm themselves. You can say, I am a doctor, my patient has just stated she's going to kill herself and I'm convinced. You can say, I have a patient who may have accidentally overdosed on meds and I'm not going to let her drive. I don't think she's safe. You can say, my kid just lit the frog on fire, whatever you think you need to say. But the first thing out of your mouth is, what's going on? Because they have to do problem solving. They have what we would call a solution tree. They have to work their way down. So if you say one thing, that eliminates 5 people they could call and cuts it down to only 2 or 3, then they'll ask you more questions. They will ask you for your name. You do give them your name. They can see your phone number. So I don't think I've ever been asked for my phone number. I think they're seeing it on their screen. And I also tell them I am a licensed psychologist. I do add in anything I can to validate that I know what I'm doing and I don't make these calls lightly. So whatever line of work you're in, so if you say a child is choking in my classroom and you say I am a teacher, they're going to take that very seriously because they know that you've probably had some training on this, on what to do in an emergency. Okay, so they will say, what's the nature of the emergency? And they will say, if it's about you, they will say, are you safe? Can you get safe? And then they will ask you for your name. So they're going to do safety first, and they're figuring out who to call. And they will tell you to stay on the line. And you'll hear in the background calls connecting. You'll hear them connecting across their switchboards. I don't know what it's called now. Their computers used to be a switchboard when I was young. And they will say, please stay on the line. We are connecting with. And they will almost always tell you who they're connecting with. So they will say, we are calling the Los Angeles Police. We are calling the California Highway Patrol. We are calling the EMTs immediately. If you're on the road, they will ask you for a location. They may ask you for the location of whatever problem you saw. So, do pay attention. So if I call in and I say I have a patient who says she may have overdosed on her psych meds, they will say, is the patient with you? And I will say, no, I can give you their street address. If it's about you, if you're having a car issue, they will say, where are you? And you need to look at the side of the roads. There are mile markers on the sides of most roads that are paved through state and county jurisdiction. So there are markers there. If not, you think about what is the closest exit sign you saw on the road. I think what else? They will tell you then, okay, we are sending, or you will often hear, if it's the police or fire, that you will hear them on the line. They will connect, and the operator will say, we have a report of a car on fire at this location. And they may say the caller is on the line, and the people may talk directly to you. Most of the time they haven't, but you will hear them say, we are sending a fire truck, we are sending a police car, we are sending an ambulance, please stay where you are. And again, they will often say, are you safe? Can you stay where you are safely? And then you thank them, and they will usually request, someone on the call will, by the end of it, usually ask for a phone number because they may not be looking at the operator's computer. So they may ask you for your number so they can call you while they are en route. So that's what a 911 call is like. And you shouldn't be afraid to do this. The boogeyman, the 911 police don't hunt you down. They can tell you, I don't believe this is an emergency, please call this. I'm trying to think if I've ever had that happen. But I know I've had supervisees where we had this happen, where a supervisee called in a child abuse and they said it's not imminent. And so they gave them the DCFS numbers. They will refer you. They gave them the Department of Child and Family Services number. That's what it is in LA County. Most places it's called CPS, Child Protective Services. They will tell you information they believe you need to know. In some cases, they will stay on the line with you. If you are emotionally distraught, if you yourself are in personal danger, often the operator will stay with you. Let me tell you something. These people, 911 operators, have an extremely short career expectation because the stress level's through the roof because they often hear things going horribly wrong on these calls. So please be very, very nice to them. And if they're not warm and fuzzy to you, please try to remember, I guarantee you if they're working that day, they're having a bad day. It's a hard, hard job. But that's the 911 call. And you should know how to do it, and you should not be afraid to do it. And if you like this segment, I would suggest you let other members of your family hear this so that your family is used to this idea as well. Consider it a public service from yours truly. And of course, the act hexagon is still there in the notes because I'm just so in love with it. And that, my friends, is committed action. I don't sit on my hands. Okay, in the fluffy books, not much. I'm not really watching anything, including Seinfeld. I'm determined I'm going to get through it. But I'm starting to wonder why I am. It's good nonsense while I knit some nights, but I'm just not that excited about it. Meanwhile, I am still reading the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn, and I really enjoy them. I have to say, I'm finishing book 3. The series on Netflix season 1 was book 1, season 2 was book 2. They've been toying with us with these 2 characters who belong to book 4. So they've decided season 3 will actually be book 4. And then they're going to cycle back and do book 3. Having now read book 3, I can see why. There are a lot of social issues in the book. And if you start introducing race into it, that's going to be a very sophisticated set of plots, shall we say, that's going to really complicate what is already fairly complex. Now, the interesting thing is, historically, at the time of the Regency, the issue wouldn't have been that complex, but it's going to be very complex for a bunch of 21st century listeners. There are issues of class and gender that are very sophisticated for us, that I think they would have seen in a much more simple light in the Regency. And of course, this is Bridgerton. They all think like 21st century people in the Regency. And it's really very charming and sweet in its own way. Got to warn you, a little bit R-rated, but okay. And I like the dialogue a lot. So I originally looked at book 3. What is book 3? I can't remember, to be honest. I just finished The Viscount Who Loved Me, which I couldn't put down. That's book 2. Can't remember the name of book 3. But anyway, I'm finishing book 3. It's about, brother number 2. And that's part of his gripe, is he's always just the second Bridgerton son. He doesn't have any social identity most of the time in public. And so it's very interesting the way they counter that with his femme fatale's problem. Anyway, it's good. It's a lot of fun. It's a Cinderella story, but there's a lot of class stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to seeing how season 4 comes out, because they have renewed the Bridgerton series on Netflix for 2 more years. So they have a lot of faith. But season 3 should be pretty delightful. It's 2 very funny, very sparky characters, so it should be kind of nice. Oh, something I really like. I've been very blasé with this for the last few episodes, so I'm going crazy on that one. First thing is my couch arm tray table. This popped up on one of those annoying ads you get when you're scrolling through Facebook about, look what our influencers are finding on Amazon. But I saw this and said, that really is a good idea. It's about $30. You can get them down to $17. There's a huge variety of these. I like this one because it's bamboo, which is a much more sustainable source for the wood. And it's just a good size. It's got fairly wide clips. It's sitting on the very broad arm of our old couch there, hiding the claw marks from a certain feline who's over by the window having a nap here. And I just like it. It's a very generously sized tray. It clips extremely firmly. The clips are extremely strong onto the arm of the couch. The whole thing, including the clips, is made of bamboo. And if you look carefully on the left side of the picture, you will see that it's got a nice holder for your phone or your tablet while you're sitting there. If you look closely, you will also see the ubiquitous Pepsi, because we all like Diet Pepsi in this house. And it is sitting on one of these spare squares that was crocheted for the blanket's own blanket. So the spares seem to be slowly evolving into coasters and mug bats. I have a bunch of them, probably about 9 or 10 of them. And I still have some leftover yarn, and I'm just not even looking at that right now. I just can't even conceive of looking at that leftover yarn. It's odds and ends. I don't believe there's any full balls left, I'm happy to say, of yarn. All right, but that is the couch arm tray table from Amazon. The link is right there in the show notes. Below that, I went a little crazy too. I just had a hard week with the patients. Just a lot of stress and controversy. And so I finally gave up. I keep a few things in my cart at Amazon for moments like this, and it was a moment like this several weeks ago, and that made me buy the beautiful strainer or infuser that is sitting in the mug. You cannot see it very clearly, but it is from Plum Deluxe. I am one of these people who cannot have enough tea infusers because I'm always sticking them in random mugs and then taking them out and then putting them on a counter to drain into the sink and then forgetting about them. So I've got at least 3 of them now. They are mug sized. And this is a very nice one. I believe it was $9. But if you want a strainer or an infuser, whatever you want to call it, Plum Deluxe has a nice variety. The mug, okay, it's true. My friend Carla, alias Quantum Quadrat, has the world's best wish list on Amazon. And I'm sorry you don't know her name and address, and I can't give it to you, because I would tell you if you just want some really cool stuff, Carla is great at finding stuff. This is one of her finds. It is a beautiful mug. It is 16 ounces. It looks like a more classic teacup. It's just kind of big. It's porcelain. It's sensational. I don't remember how much it was. I want to say it was $19 or something like that. But it is just lovely with its, I assume that's a peony or a rose on it. And it's just a pink flower. What can I say? If you don't love that, you don't love anything. So the links for both the mug and the infuser, alias the strainer, are there in the show notes by the picture. The other thing I like, summer holidays, because, you know, Joann Fabrics feels obligated to have a sale. I will say, this was not a great sale. Now that Memorial Day sale, that was pretty hot. This time they were selling a lot of the same things. They cut their prices, but not quite as much. Memorial Day, the flannels were 60% off. This time they were 50% off. I did buy one. You may recognize on the right in the picture of the flannels, of the fabrics rather, that I bought. You may recognize that flannel on the right is a color variation of the rainbow hearts that I already made a complete full circle skirt out of. This one I only bought enough to make a, waistband skirt with 2 panels, not a full circle skirt. I really quite like this. It's mostly a blue tone with little hints of orange and a hint, a breath, really pale, pale yellow, almost a tan. So I really like that colorway. Yeah, there's blue in it too. Look at that. And the other one is the Pink Daisies fabric, which I just love. I finished the skirt today in that. Underneath it is a book on what to do with fat quarters, because I have a whole collection of those, because I just lose my marbles sometimes when I see fat quarters. They had them on sale for $1.49, which is not a particularly great price, frankly, for a fat quarter, but it's okay. And I bought a bunch of those in blues because I'm looking at a quilting project that will come up later. And I'm going to have scraps. And I saw in this book a wonderful pattern for a door jamb and another one for a blocker, like the kind of caterpillar that goes under your door to block stray breezes. And I just loved both of those. And I thought, okay, and there were a couple good bags as well, quilted bags. So there you go. I love the holiday fabric sales. This was also the place where they were selling 6 spools of thread, sewing thread, quilting thread, whatever, for the price of 3. So I stocked up there. So we will be winding bobbins cheerfully for quite a while. Sure, I don't need to sew all these skirts. Is that stopping me? I don't think so. Put a lid on it. Well, the tea tastings continue, of course. Now this time I did Grantham Gray from Plum Deluxe. I assume that's Downton Abbey reference there. And I didn't really like it. I really don't. Now, first of all, Plum Deluxe, anything that has bergamot oil in it gets into their category of Earl Grey. Even the herbals that don't have black tea. The traditional Earl Grey, in case you didn't know, is black tea mixed with bergamot oil. It gives it a very wonderful odor. The bergamot oil smells fantastic. And so Plum Deluxe likes to take bergamot and throw it in all sorts of combinations and call it a gray variant. And I'm fine with that because that led to the fantastic Lady Grey. If there is any tea on this planet that is better than Earl Grey, it might be Plum Deluxe's Lady Grey. I don't think that's a regular feature. I think that's a time-limited one. I have another shipment of it coming if they ever mail it, and I'm really looking forward to that. But anyway, the Grantham Grey, you can see the ingredients. This is a black tea, and they threw in orange peel, which they often do with their Earl Grey variants. Blue cornflowers, which makes it look nice. I don't know if it actually gives it flavor. Of course, the bergamot oil. And then they put in violet essence and malva flowers. I'm not sure where the flavor was here that I didn't like, but my guess is it was the violet. I'm not sure what malva flowers even taste like. But there was a flavor, a background harsh flavor for me that reminded me of violet syrup. It took me a while to identify it. So this was not a hit. The smell was forgettable. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't good. And the flavor was just this sort of background flavor that I did not like. I have to tell you too, when I'm in for an Earl Grey, I want to add cream to it. The Grantham Grey, good with cream, just the same without cream. Didn't make a big difference. I would not over sugar this. But this just was not my thing. So I don't think it's really just terrible. I just don't think it's that good. But I'm glad that Plum Deluxe makes these insane little tea bags, as you can see. That's usually, they say it's 3 cups. I'd call it 2. And these are great. They do these samplers for a really low price where you get, 6 or 8 of these little tea bags to test out their variant blends. And I have to tell you, I love those. I really love those. I think it's a really great way to do tea tastings. What I don't like is, you can see it's in plastic, so it's not very environmental friendly. I wish they would improve on that in their packaging. But I got to say, those samplers are pretty good to not have you wasting money on larger amounts. Also, on I think it's on Facebook, there was a lovely meme there, ways to make pesto. So I just threw that in. I haven't tried any of them, except I have made basil pesto, which I love. But they have cilantro jalapeno pesto there. Oh yes, I've made parsley pesto too, and that's okay. It's not basil pesto, let's be honest here. And then they have a mint pesto. So all of these seem very worth trying. They don't give you proportions, they just give you ingredients, because you should mess around with your pesto to get what you like. And what are you going to put that pesto on, you may be asking, since it is that time of year where you can buy basil all over the place and make pesto. Why, you're going to put it on bread. But Gemma, you're diabetic. Yes, that's why I didn't say pasta. But I have keto bread, and this week I rediscovered fried bread. Okay, all the Brits just pricked up their ears. You guys know about fried bread. You include it in some variations of the standard English breakfast. I don't think it goes with the standard Scottish breakfast. I think they usually serve toast. But at any rate, fried bread. Ooh la la. This is a keto bread. I get a mix from Foxhill Farms. You may remember that. And one day I said, I just want poached eggs so badly. And there is nothing as delicious as poached eggs on toast. And you may remember in a previous episode, I went bananas one day and I put sardines crushed in balsamic vinegar on my fried bread, and that was insanely delicious too. So I just thought I should feature, there is the fried bread. That's what it looks like. No, it is not charred. It came out a little darker looking in the photo. It actually came out quite nicely golden brown. Fried bread, really easy. Take a skillet. I like just the iron skillets, and put a huge amount of butter in that baby. Don't put in a little. And get the butter nice and deep and hot and melted, and then throw in thin slices of your bread. Since I make buns out of the Foxhill Farms mix, I just slice them into smaller slices and throw them in. And just let it sit there, and every now and then flip one and look at it until you like the color of the part that is against the skillet. When you reach that moment, flip everybody over and go for another minute or two. This doesn't take long to make, and it is so good. Now, if you're a keto person, keto bread is a bit of a challenge, finding a good keto bread. There's a lot of bad keto bread. So I happen to like the Foxhill Farms mix, and it does not go well in a toaster. And that is really what you're doing here. When you fry the bread properly, it's like you've got really crispy buttered toast. So fried bread, it's just bread and butter a whole new way. And it's wonderful stuff. It works with regular bread, but it also works great with keto breads. In the pup date, not much. Captain and Queenie were still waiting on their grooming in mid-July. The Hubs date, the Hubs and the son started sprucing up the house. This was really, really nice. It's not quite as benign as it sounds. We've lost our homeowner's insurance because they recoded our fire risk. So we have to buy homeowners again, but we also have to buy fire insurance which means sending pictures of the house and showing that we are not a big fire hazard. And the hub said, this would be a great moment to paint all the wood trim, which I could not agree with more. If you look in that picture to the left of my boys, you will see a cactus sitting there, and there's a long strip. And if you were looking, no, you can't really see it in this picture because you're not looking at all three windows there. You're only seeing the first two. Under the third window, we have a beautiful trumpet vine. And so I've ordered 2 more of those to put under these 2 windows. And we're going to try to plant that strip. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So we're in the phase of breaking down cardboard boxes and laying them down over those strips and watering them to try to stop weeds. And then we have to put dirt on it. Then we're going to start planting. One of the plantings is going to be that very barrel of cactus. We've had that for over 20 years. They're alive and well. And we just finally realized they so much belong to the place we should actually put them in the ground. But we are working on planting all the front of the house, and that should be exciting, which means below that picture of the boys, you can see on the other side of that little front porch that they're painting, on the other side of that, you can see our kitchen greenhouse window there and a garage window there. And under that, there is a 15-foot bed of spearmint. I had a Paiute acquaintance, and I was complaining about how I couldn't get any herbs to grow, and she said, I'll bring you some native spearmint. And I said, no, I've tried spearmint, it won't grow. And she gave me this funny look and said, I don't think you're getting this. This is Paiute spearmint. This is our cultivar. This has been growing up in the desert for us for more years than you can count. And she said, trust me, these plants will do great no matter where you put them. She wasn't kidding. So there is our 15 feet of spearmint. It's not unbroken. We've had to pull out the hawthorn bush, Nathaniel, that some of you may remember. It was right by the patio. And so we're trying to get the spearmint to go over that. But as you can see, it's pretty healthy stuff. I have been weeding it slowly, but it does make my arms break out, and I have to take a lot of Benadryl when I do it. And if you look closely, the bottom right, you'll see this big bushy green. That is our jasmine plant. It used to be on a trellis, but it ate the trellis. It just ripped it right off the wall finally. So it's now a low-growing bush. This is the world's most ineffectual walkway. You got to keep stepping over really nice plants to walk down it. Someday we will get this in better shape. But this will lead down to the idea that I actually decided, and if you look below, you'll see the pollinators for Zone 9B picture. I decided that we really have to get serious about sprucing up the front of the house, that we've reached a point in our lives here. We've tried on various occasions and failed because we kept going to local greenhouse places. And they don't sell for our zone. They sell for the Los Angeles basin, which is a very different and much more temperate zone. We are in Zone 9B, which is kind of desert. It gets cold at night. So I went online finally and located our zone and did some research. And I ended up with a whole lot of plants because I was going to try to spread Gloria all over the place, our morning glory, and then said, I'm not sure she's actually going to do that well in our zone. So I went down, and you can see my order summary from a lovely place that's actually, I think, in Michigan. But I had such a good time because I looked up all these beautiful plants that grow in our zone in 9B. Turns out most of them are for bees and butterflies. They're just pollinator plants, which is so exciting to me. So you can see I got some milkweed, and that's going to go along the front. I got Shasta daisy, which I just can't believe that's going to grow here because it's so hot, but it says it will. I always think of it as, not surprisingly, on Mount Shasta. Then, of course, you can see my trumpet vines that I just can't wait to meet. And then we have a hummingbird mint, which I have seen planted around here. Not in our particular town, but down in Santa Clarita. And we have stonecrop. And I will tell you, when I looked at their selection of stonecrop variants, that stuff is all over the Santa Clarita Valley, which is also 9B zoned and is very hot. So I'm very excited because there's one called the coral carpet stonecrop, which is basically a ground cover. It takes very little water once you get it established, which is perfect. These are all perennials. So I'm excited that, like the spearmint, once we get these in, if we give it a couple years, we should have some really nice gardening going on. Meanwhile, if you roll back a little bit, you will see Gloria. Gloria's gone bananas. Gloria is blossoming like crazy. I did manage to get one start from her to grow, and I replanted it in her big pot. It is doing fine. In fact, it's making blossoms. It's still very scraggly and weak because it's not close enough to the sun, but eventually it's going to go into our outdoor pots, which is a whole other story. How did I do with the outdoor pots, though? Since we have those, shouldn't I put Gloria in them? Yes, I should. So if you look at the bottom picture, you can see Gloria's vine. She started growing a vine up the cord to our window shade, which meant we couldn't use the window shade. You can't see it well in that picture, but she went all the way from the windowsill right up to the ceiling and wrapped around the blinds. So this weekend I carefully unwrapped that and cut it into several sections and planted it outdoors in a pot that I've been trying to enrich the soil on. So hopefully we will see those starts. I have to put a lot of water in them because that place they're in drains instantly. But I'm trying to water it faithfully with a lot of water every morning and trying to get those guys to root, so we'll see if that works. This takes us down to the calendar. And of course, you all know already, the Cognitive Fiber Retreat is on Saturday, November 11th, 2023. I did just request it off at work this week, I'm very happy to say. And the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference in Anaheim at the Convention Center by Disneyland. I will be there too. That is December 12th through 17th. Not sure yet if I'm getting that time off, so I might be running back and forth to sessions while seeing patients and only taking 1 or 2 days off. But I definitely plan to see patients down there by computer with earphones from the hotel. I definitely plan to go down there for a few days and get a bit of a break now that I know that you can just take a train down and it's really, really super easy. So we are looking forward to that. Minerva gets the last word. There's a picture of her using the sink to pee. When Minerva thinks that the litter box is not clean enough, she will use the sink to pee. Now, you can either be grossed out by that, or you can say, actually, that's a pretty smart cat, because we don't get cat urine stains all over the place. I can just rinse it right down, pour a little white vinegar down, and it takes the smell out. Yes, well, I'm ashamed to say that I was so harried this week that, yes, Minerva went back to the sink. Fortunately, she didn't use that sink. That's rather an old picture. She used the sink that we don't tend to use on the other side, which drains even better. But it's true, this was such a crazy week that I didn't even get to do my typical cleaning. So I've had a 3-day weekend, and in between running to Joann's for a sale and picking up my husband's car from the collision center because he got into a fender bender, and making skirts, I have been cleaning that big bathroom, which desperately needed it. So things are a lot nicer around here. The boys are doing all the outside trim and painting and cleaning out the weeds. Oh, it's just great. And we are looking at major plantings for perennials if we can keep them alive through our summer. And I do wish I'd planted them earlier. I didn't see this coming, but I'm really happy about it. And again, these are experiments. We're just going to see what takes, what we can get to grow. So hopefully we'll get some of these to take permanently. And if we are too late into the season to plant some of these guys, well, we can buy them again in the fall, or we can buy them again in the spring and give them a better chance. But there we go. I'm complaining because Minerva wants you to know that she is our most on-site available critic, and she does have opinions. So having said all of this, everybody, you know the drill. Stay safe. Take care of each other. I will talk to you soon. Keep watching the show notes for by the time you hear this, it should be the show notes for 137. And you will see updates on Ravelry. It will be in the reply section in the most recent show notes if you want to see who has paid and who has gotten on the list and where you are on the list and all of that. So you will be looking to the show notes. Meanwhile, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.